really do appreciate some time. So I want to talk line of scrimmage.
Sure.
Yeah, our friends up on the line of scrimmage, who they are the reason wins and losses happen, but we all pay attention to quarterbacks, you know,
And State's got a good one.
and they do, and it's a big part of it. But there's been a conversation going on about State's offensive line transitioning from air raid to a more typical kind of, spread option run. Just on the surface, when you see that, what are your thoughts about an offensive line making that transition?
Yeah, and it's always an interesting conversation. I've gone through it in my career as a head coach, the transition from a heavy run to more of a balanced attack. And over in Starkville, they're doing the opposite of that. It's a air raid, pass heavy offense. A lot of the runs were predicated off of draw schemes as well. So a heavy emphasis on pass and draw and those kind of things. And then I've known Kevin Barbay, I guess it's going on 8 years now, because he and I were together at Florida with Jim McElwain, and think very highly of him and what he's done as an offensive coordinator, especially the last 2 years. And I think the thing that does help over in Starkville is they do have 4 returning starters across the line. And even though they were, a big half pass emphasis, offense, I think one of the biggest things is the mentality shift. I think because I've watched Kevin a bunch, a lot of 3-point stance, a lot of play action and downhill run, stretch, inside zone, gap scheme. And I think a lot of that, comes with obviously the shift in the fundamentals, the shift in executing out of a more of a 3-point stance. But I think the shift in mentality where we're going to run the ball and build play actions off of it to set up some explosive plays. I watched a bunch of the spring game, and I think it's a process that's going to, go through. But I have confidence in Kevin and what he's going to be able to do.
Yeah. So you mentioned something interesting to me. I'm thinking about it from like a purely fundamental standpoint. We talk about schemes and all this stuff, but it's guys' hands, feet, legs, butts, and muscles have got to make it happen. So 3-point stance. So you mentioned that, right? Because in the air raid, big wide splits, and even your guards are up on 2. They're basically a tackle in space because of the wide. So that's a big adjustment really for the interior offensive lineman, right?
Right. And then too, just the mentality, a lot of those times are set up to be one-on-one matchups a lot of times in the passing game and even in the run game too. But now you shift to more, the protection, the variances of slide protection, going back in protection, all those kind of things, zoning off certain sides of protections that you have to do in a normal traditional offense.
Okay. So for you as a coach, where you've had a spring, a summer, and now you're in fall, they do have a bunch of it's like all seniors and grad seniors, multiple grad seniors that are all going to play for. That's like their first 7 are all seniors and grad seniors.
Yep.
So when you see that, and we got to go hand on the ground more, we're closer together. So we got to really operate like a zone defense in basketball. We operate as one unit. How tough is that transition? As some people are saying, are they going to have to play a game or two before they really figure it out? Or do you see it as a coach of, we can coach that up and they can be ready to go game 1?
Yeah, there's nothing like going against an opponent from a different colored jersey that you're going to have to play against.
Sure.
And the variances, you get kind of used to, I know Coach Arnett and the defensive scheme that they have is really good and really multiple, but you kind of, see the same blitzes, same things that you're going to have to deal with. Now, all of a sudden, you're having to run an entirely new offense with an entirely new set of schematics that you're going against. And really the first 2 games, there's always unknowns because those coaches are off, in Arizona, Southeast Louisiana, they've been scheming some stuff up too. So there's going to be a lot of new things that are going to get thrown at them. So I think anytime that it's, this drastic of a shift, there's going to be some things that are going to have, real time adjustments that have to be made. But I do think having, a coach as high quality as Coach Barbay and a lot of returning older guys, I think that helps. But I think, it's going to be a mentality shift. It's going to be a lot of things that they're going to have to adjust on the fly. And, one of the good things, I was looking at the schedule, 8 home games with those cowbells ringing, hopefully that's gotta lend some, some help as well.
Sure. And I know you know a lot about them. I saw the mayhem on your shirt. I have, since you were the DC at State all those years ago, you've since gone and been a head coach at multiple places, but I'll never forget the psycho defense, and scream. And since then, Coach, I've heard a lot of other people say in high schools and other stuff saying psycho defense. And I think, now, wait a minute, now that's Geoff's. That's his thing, but other people are using it. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that, but I think any kind of thing like that is flattery. And we had a great run there, and I have such fond memories of Starkville and the fan base and all those kind of things. I've still yet since I left there, I think the end of 2014. Have found any breakfast place that replicates Starkville Cafe, duck butter, and I try to find that experience replicated everywhere I go. I just haven't found it. So I guess one of those 8 home games, I need to make a trip.
Yes, you do. You come on in there, and you'll have a crowd. People certainly remember those years so fondly. Sure. I was thinking about the 14 year this morning. I shared it on Twitter when I was getting ready to interview you. It just reminded me, that LSU game in 14, it was such a big deal. And I saw you on the hotel. This is hours and hours before you even go to the stadium. And I said, "You feel good about tonight?" You were like,
"Yeah."
I mean, it was the Jack. You guys knew you had a really good team before anybody else realized it in 14.
We did. And we had built to that. And, just everything came together, the leadership on both sides of the ball. Anytime you have Dak Prescott as your quarterback, and Bernardrick McKinney is your Mike linebacker, you got a chance. And, I know there's a bunch of guys that are still playing in the league off of that team, but just fond memories, and love that place.
Hey, you mentioned a minute ago, one-on-one matchups, and I hadn't even thought of it, but when you said that, immediately I get this picture. That game against LSU in 14, I remember he had the big, 4-down stop on the goal line.
Yep.
You guys put Preston Smith, who's a linebacker, edge rusher in the NFL, at nose guard in that game. And it sort of confuses them because they're in a passing 3rd down. Right. Well, they're thinking, well, he's inside, we're going to single him up. Well, you couldn't single him. It was brilliant putting him at nose that game.
And having Chris Jones, true freshman year, he was our edge rusher in our Prowler package. And so that game was actually on TV. One of the replays on SEC Network, and tried to get my daughter to watch it, and so she would think I was cool, but obviously that didn't work. But that was a great night.
Oh man, golly, Preston Smith at nose.
Yep.
Chris Jones off the edge, Bernardrick McKinney in the middle.
Pretty good.
I guess what it feels like I'm kind of driving towards, it's players, not scheme. Is that what we're driving towards right there?
A lot of times it is, the better players you got, the better chance you got. And, I said earlier about the quarterback that they have, he's a really good player. And, I think the NFL is, the spread has evolved into the NFL, but still you're watching the NFL Network all the time. 50% of the time they're under center. So him having that exposure to be under center a lot of the times is going to help him too for when he gets to the next level. So I got to imagine, he's embraced, that. And in this entire conversation, utmost respect for Coach Leach. I've got 3 of his books sitting over here in my Mississippi State corner. And, just the respect that everybody has for him. And, even though the air raid is pass heavy, pass emphasis, Coach always talked about the discipline, the toughness, all of those things are built into that program, and they're built into that place over in Starkville too. Mm-hmm. That want to see a physical, tough brand of ball on both sides. And, I think, Kevin Barbay, brings that.
Yeah. All-time great book title in my mind, Squib Kick It to a Fat Guy. Only Mike Leach would come up with that. It's perfect.
He's the best.
He's the best.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, back to the line of scrimmage transition thing, and we'll finish with this. when you got the head coaching job at Georgia Tech back in the day,
Sure.
this was the inverse. You're taking over a program at that point. They'd run the Paul Johnson midline veer option. I don't know what you want to call it.
And they ran it really well.
Really well. And look, I remember, Coach, we'd watch them play, and we played them a couple of times, like in 09 and the bowl game. And you watch them, and their linemen are down there like this high off the ground, firing off ahead, hitting people. It's a totally different style.
Yep.
That you guys were kind of transitioning into what is we'd call, a modern offense, but certainly a more typical spread type of offense.
And before the portal existed, so it's one of those things.
Right.
It is what it is. And I think one of the pieces too with Kevin's offense, we walked into a system that had 0 tight ends on the roster, and trying to find those guys, whether it be a reserve linebacker, which we made the transition to help us to get through the first year, or really the first 2 years, because there was no portal. So you had to build it from scratch. It was all true freshmen playing tight end. Luckily, we got a grad transfer, but the tight end position is going to be huge. The development and the maturation of that position, transitioning to Coach Barbay's offense as well. And, I don't think that can be, overlooked. That's it's a unique situation to be in, but the long term of investing in it, will pay off. But just understanding that it's going to be a process. And, I think, got the right guys to do it, and just the mentality shift, when you're running a gap scheme, running a power on 3rd and 1, it's different, and the tight ends one-on-one base block on a 9 technique or 6 technique, it takes cumulative reps, to be really good. And I know this better than anybody, but that SEC's got some real dudes on defense that you got to try to block. And, so it's going to be fun to watch, but I'm going to be pulling for Stade and Kevin and Tony Hughes and David Turner and Chad Bumpus and Greg Knox, all back in Starkville. So that place got a fan in me.
Zach really has put together a fantastic staff, hasn't he?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was good to see those guys come back, and because I'm close to all those guys, and just to see them, come together and support him, because going from defense coordinator to being the head ball coach, that's a transition as well. And having a bunch of really good, loyal people that are good humans and that want to see what's best for that place. I think that sets, Zach up for success in the short term and the long term as well.
Yeah. Really good stuff. Geoff, it's been a real treat. I appreciate it. The only disappointment in the interview is I'm disappointed in myself that I didn't put a piece of tape on my cup and say juice across here. I'll have to think of that next time.
No doubt. I got my swag chalice over there in the corner too.
Swag chalice? Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. And a cowbell. You can't go wrong with either one of those.
No doubt. Appreciate it.
Really do appreciate it, Coach. Talk soon.
All right, Matt.